Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today I thought I would, give me a second, bring in all this fancy hardware I've got. All these awards. And is this cringy enough? Yeah, for y'all. So let me put this into a little context, I guess. I attended the American Advertising Award banquet this past weekend with some agencies, clients that I was fortunate enough to work with, and they had submitted campaigns into this contest, which starts regionally and then, well, it starts locally and then goes regionally and then nationally. So I knew I was going to be part of a group that had stuff in, so I then put some of my own work in. Just couldn't help myself. It's been 7 years or so since I've done that, and I was selected for a silver. This is so obviously the whole thing was rigged. This is a gold. This is kind of what you go for, and silver is kind of like you know, that saying, if you're not first, you're last. But anyway, that's what I was stuck with, and that's kind of part of what I wanted to talk about today, and whether or not these contests are worth it, worth your time, worth your money. And I think when you're thinking about participating in one of these contests, you need to, I guess, really consider your motivation. If this is for an opportunity to gain more work or more exposure, as most of these contests push out there. You know, if your expectations are set to where you need validation to prove that you are a worthy photographer, I think you might want to, reconsider this whole thing. So now that I've cleared some of this clutter, I thought we would maybe go back a little bit and to maybe the genesis of all this photography, these photo contests, what have you. And I believe, before the internet, social media, if you were wanting to kind of break into the bigger realm of the industry, the contest world was a great place to get exposure, get your work in front of a lot of people in advertising and these big ad agencies and that type of thing. And it was a legitimate avenue to do that. But then you kind of get into the 90s and the early 2000s, you're starting to get the internet, and where you can have websites and build your presence online, and then you go from there to social media, and things really kind of put the control into you as a photographer. You have so much more control now than we used to. And so there were magazines back in the day who had, contests, and there would be probably like 4 of them a year or so. Magazines like, your PDNs, your CA. If you're in the advertising world, you're familiar with Communication Art, CA magazine. This is the advertising annual, so all your major advertising agencies will have work in there. Design annual, and then a photography annual. These are fantastic, and these still go on. And having been in this industry for 20 plus years now, this was always kind of a bucket list for me to get in there, and I was fortunate enough to do that back in 2020. So that's kind of one realm where, if you've got something that is a goal of yours, and I'm not here to dissuade you from going for that. If it's National Geographic, something like that, go for it. Another awesome magazine is Archive. This is out of Europe. This almost looks like modern day AI work. I think if this was put out this year, someone would probably have a second look at that. But fantastic collection of images. These are great reference manuals, or annuals, I should say, where you can go through and find really amazing work that's being done around the world. And so that was a huge thing, was trying to get placed in these magazines. And then you had source books. So I just pulled one of them out. So you could pay to have your work showcased in some of these source books that then would be mailed to ad agencies, and supposedly, they would be there on their shelf where the art directors and creative directors would flip through, find your work, and call you up and hire you to do some major ad campaign. Those are still going on as well today, but I tend to feel like you're in the driver's seat. And to that point, as the internet kind of took over things and print media dropped off, you had the magazines like this one here, which they're circulating. This used to be a really thick magazine, and they're gone now. But I believe what they did their last couple of years of existence is use photo contest, because they had one, it seemed like every week, but they used photo contests to keep themselves afloat. And that really put a bad taste in my mouth, just riding the backs of photographers and pushing that theme of exposure, and that these contests could really make a difference in your career and this, that, and the other. And so they were just fleecing photographers to keep themselves afloat. And that's kind of where, that's where I kind of draw the line with all these, is that you need to kind of figure out what it is that you can get out of a certain contest, and what is the barrier, like what is the entry fee. A lot of it is money. Save your money. Don't waste your money on 9 out of 10 of these contests. They're not worth it. And the one reason I pulled those awards out, I've won plenty of awards. I've also not been, I guess, I don't know if you lose in a contest, but I've also been not chosen plenty of times. But I pulled those out as like a reference, just to show that even though I've have these trophies, I've got all these little things up here on the shelf. Those represent like gold advertising awards. They made a huge difference in my life? No. In my commercial career? No. Do I show them all the time outside of this video? Never. Do I put it on my website or anything about being award winning? No, I do not. I would rather have my portfolio do the talking than shelf of awards. So it just kind of is what it is, but I think at the end of the day, it goes back to your work. And I don't think you need awards from contests to justify or validate yourself as a photographer. One of the suggestions I would give is to take that money that you would spend on these contests and put it toward going to a conference or a portfolio review where you actually get to sit at a table with a person from an ad agency who can look at your work directly and flip through and maybe give you some feedback on what they're seeing and what maybe they like. A lot of times they're not going to critique your work. You can go to portfolio critiques and all that kind of stuff. I think those are better than contests, because when you submit to a contest, you're either selected or you're not selected. And even if you're selected, you don't know necessarily why you were selected. And if you weren't selected, I don't know any contest that really let you know what was missing from your work or what could have been done better, any of that type of thing. There's really no educational feedback from the results of submitting your work to these contests. So you really miss out. You're really just kind of throwing money into a hole without any return. And even if you get an award, I don't think it's worth all the trouble and probably some of the emotional attachments that you might have to certain contests. I don't think it's there. I think your money is better spent going to conferences, like I said, going to portfolio reviews, making one-on-one meetings with ad agencies if that's where you want to go and do your work, or other people in an industry where you would want to get more work. So let's take a look at one way you can hack, such a buzzword on YouTube, one way you can hack these photo contests. So even this week, I've gotten probably 3 or 4 emails about contests and these judges and this, that, and the other. And so in that, along with having been to this ceremony this past weekend, kind of gave me the idea that maybe I should make a video about it. But a way that I think in this day and age that you can really make use of some of these emails and solicitations for contests is see who the judges are. And then, Google if there's a judge from an ad agency or a magazine or wherever your industry that you want to get into, Google their name, find them on LinkedIn, find them on Twitter, find them on Instagram. Follow them there. Don't go 100% stalker on them. But what you can do is, instead of submitting your work toward a needless photo contest, you make a promotional piece with your work and you mail it to them. Mail it to them, to their agency. Maybe while you're looking at them, maybe find some other people that work at that agency and just mail them a piece of marketing material with your work. And then a couple months later, mail them another piece. And then maybe interact with them a little bit on social media, kind of build something like that. See if you can get a one-on-one meeting with them. If you find a group of these ad agency folks, like in a city, like Atlanta or New York, Chicago, LA, put together use this money that you're burning on photo contests, save that up and go take a trip there and meet with these people, get some FaceTime, some one-on-one time, feedback, and get on their radar much more so than you would in a pile of submissions in a photo contest. So that, I think, is the main kind of way you can circumvent some of this incoming stuff that you're getting from companies that are just wanting to make money off photographers. Use them like they're trying to use you, and kind of turn the tables a little bit. But so that being said, I do think there are some instances where it might be worthwhile to put yourself into a contest. If it's something social, a local photo club, or if you're going to a conference and it doesn't cost anymore to submit some work. I think any of those types of things where you're going to be around other photographers, and where it's more of a social thing, it's a fun thing, it's a thing you can talk about your work with their work and that type of thing. It's and then you might get some recognition that way. If you don't, it's really you really haven't lost anything, especially on the monetary end. Another thing is when you are part of a team, like an ad, when you create an ad campaign with an agency, and the level of work that y'all create is at a point where maybe it is has a chance to win an award, like these advertising awards here. That's when you kind of put yourself in with that group. You kind of endear yourself, I guess, a little bit more so, or ingrain yourself with that creative team, to where hopefully down the line, when work comes in, or potential work comes in to their agency, they're going to say, hey, why don't we call so-and-so? We just won, or we've won awards with them in the past, and you're kind of you work yourself to the top of their list. And that's where this one kind of came in nicely. This was with a agency, and it resulted from a campaign that we did a couple years ago, and I've worked with them a couple times since, and know the people there where I can send an email and know that they'll answer that email. I could either call them up or send them a direct message on social media, and that is way more valuable than just sending in to some random photo contest that you might get an email about, or who knows where these things come from. Social media, you might see some things there. So I think at the end of the day, you just have to kind of look at the motivations, like I mentioned in the beginning, of why you would want to enter a contest. And if it's to get more work, there most likely is a better way to do that. If it's for a validation of your work, there's definitely other ways to do that. And set yourself up in situations where you can actually get feedback on your work, and not just some little piece of hardware at the end of the day, and that's all you get. And you just I think, set yourself up for disappointment because you're not getting all of a sudden a bunch of work in because you have a little trophy. So that's kind of all I wanted to say on that, and I hope that kind of resonates maybe with some of y'all who have done these contests in the past or are considering doing them in the future, and take them for someone who's kind of been there and done all of that, and it's not what it all is billed to be. So be smart about your money, be smart about your work, and don't fall prey to these photo contests that I know everyone is bombarded with constantly. So that's probably about it for today on this video. If you feel it's worthy, please give it that thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future, hit that subscribe button down there. You can also find me on social media at QuantsPhoto on Instagram and Twitter. Y'all, please stay safe and healthy out there, and don't go wasting your money. And I'll see you back here soon in the next one.